To be accepted, she's absolutely perfect.
Being angry's out of style, changed to a complacent smile. Not the problems once confronted, former hunter, now the hunted. Don't solve problems, just have fun. Sick of the struggle, you're basking the sun. It's easier to give up than maintain your integrity. Across the only battle with the shore. Victory is standing up, another way of setting.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Ground Zero. Salem, Pat here. So it's Saturday afternoon. I'm spinning some Anathema right now. Serenades, like I mentioned last update, little late comer to this. Took me a long time for it to click with me for whatever reason, but all in now on their specific brand of Peaceville Doom Death, part of the Peaceville 3, as you probably know, with My Dying Bride and Paradise Lost. So it's a little quiet time upstairs. I thought I'd try to bang this out. I gave it a shot last night. I wasn't really feeling it. We'll see if I actually finish this. But I have a stack of LPs I wanted to talk about. Been gnawed at me. Want to show these off. A lot of good scores here. Some of which were from Discogs. Some of which were from Armageddon a few weeks back during my vacation. And a handful from this pretty cool antique market that's in a big old warehouse in Peabody, Mass. And they'd had a few things I thought I'd pick up on the cheap. So, got this in the mail. This is the most recent arrival. Got this in the mail last week. This is Broken Bones, Traitor in Death EP. This came after all their pretty well-known records, FOAD, Bone Crusher, Decapitated, and it's probably my favorite Broken Bones release. It's incredibly fast, incredibly tight metal punk UK crossover hardcore stuff, to the point where it almost bears as much similarity to American thrash crossover as far as tightness goes. I'm thinking like kind of a spiritual cousin to Crumbsuckers in terms of shreddiness, tightness, and that kind of stuff. Two guys from this were, Terry and Baz, were from Discharge, and a lot of their members went on to be in tons of other bands, touring personnel and so on and so forth. A lot of good New York bands, actually. Murphy's Law and AF. One of them was in Lard. Pretty big pedigree, these guys, but this record fucking smokes. It's a quick one. 7 songs, so it's a mini LP. Over in less than 20 minutes. Just real facial epidermis ripper. We got Obsessor. This was a one-man project out of Virginia and then later Rochester, New York, by one Brandon Farrell, who is sadly no longer with us. Brandon was the original drummer for Municipal Waste on their first couple of records and played in the awesome hardcore punk bands Government Warning and Direct Control, amongst a few other things, I think. But this is kind of him returning to crossover, speed metal, hardcore kind of stuff, and it flat out smokes. It's pretty appropriate to put it right after Broken Bones, because I feel like it has a lot of that kind of UK metal punks kind of vibe going on. A lot of good palm muted, real fast picking kind of stuff. Good catchy choruses. You know, fits right along with your English Dogs, Broken Bones, and early Onslaught kind of shit. Really fucking cool artwork too. Got this great graphite pencil first edition D&D kind of style stuff. It came out on Tank Crimes not that long ago. I think like 2015, 2014, something like that. Sadly, we lost Brandon a couple of years ago. Major loss for the scene. Very fucking talented guy. And on the few occasions I had met him and hung out with him, he was incredibly nice and really fucking funny. Up next, Prong, Force Fed. I've had a bit of a renaissance with Prong lately. They were a band I loved as a kid, as a teenager. This is a gold-stamped promo. Came out on In Effect Records. Great label that called it a day in '91. Put out Sick of It All, Killing Time, Prong, a bunch of other shit. Howie Abrams label. The iconic Harder Than You there. But yeah, I've been getting back into Prong. Early Prong. They get kind of, I don't know if slandered's the word, but credited with being a pioneering groove metal band. It's got a cool little bio from way after this record, from the Prove You Wrong record, which is interesting, but Steve Martin from AF and Straw Dogs. Did a little write-up on him. Just kind of was in there. Anyway, their early records, Prong's early records, are far more along the lines of kind of New York crossover stuff. There's a certain mechanical, cold, industrial quality to it. One of their major influences was Killing Joke, and the drummer Ted Parsons was in the Swans. Tommy Victor being the sound guy at CBGB's, and the other member whose name is slipping my mind, oh, it's right here on the headshot, Mike Kirkland, was a door guy at CBGB's. So you got a couple of dudes that worked at CB's and a member of the Swans playing very unique for the time. Thrash metal, I guess, would be the closest thing you could say it is, but it's got a lot of Bad Brains quickness going on with it, a lot of starting and stopping. This has a lot of fast stuff on it, and the record previous to it, Primitive Origins, is a smoking fucking record. Really awesome kind of crossover with some Discharge feeling in the rhythm section, kind of similar to COC before they went stoner rock, like that kind of shit. But I love this band, and the record after it, Beg to Differ, is great too. That was a major label debut with the Pusset art. Really cool record. After that, they kind of lose the plot for me. I was really into Prove You Wrong as a kid. I haven't listened to it in a long time. And then they did Cleansing, and that's where I think the kind of the groove metal kind of thing comes in. But yeah, this is just a very unique, mechanical, cold but fast, thrashy crossover record with a definite New York identity to it. It's fucking awesome. Next up, we got Limb from Limb, who, if I'm correct, are from Vancouver, Canada, I think. Crusty thrash metal. Very, very strong early bolt thrower, sacrilege kind of thing going on with the riffs, all those little string bends, kind of harmonics and stuff, the little screeching kind of sounds that Bolt Thrower and Sacrilege did early on. I think Nausea New York kind of had that going on a little bit too. Pretty gruff, deep, almost death metal kind of vocals. A good in-between crust punk and like early death metal, particularly the Bolt Thrower influenced. Bolt Thrower came out of crust too, so that makes sense. But this came out in 2007. I actually owned it around the time it came out and then flipped it and regretted it. I saw it on the shelf at Armageddon and I was like, I need to snag this because I've been really into that Fatum, whatever it is, Russian band's LP as of late, and I was like, I know this is similar and I need to get more of this kind of stuff in my life. So, Death, Famine, Plague by Limb from Limb on No Options Records, 2007. Very fucking good, very cool. This was a mandatory purchase, something I know I needed to get some more Chaos UK. This is the singles collection on Radiation. I'm a big proponent of 100% two fingers in the air punk rock. Later on in their career, like into the 90s, Chaos UK got a lot more catchy, a lot tighter with their musicianship, had some lineup changes and stuff. Got a little bit more like rock and roll and anti-scene influenced. This is their classic material, and I gotta say, maybe if I came across this as a kid, I'd feel a lot more of a connection to this. Not to say that there's bad songs. This is all bad songs, so at least more than half of the songs are great, raging, noisy, UK hardcore punk stuff, but a lot of it has a falling apart quality that doesn't really resonate with me. The song Farmyard Boogie, which they do on multiple records, is just fucking annoying. But, I mean, you can't go wrong with both versions of Victimized. It's kind of a pounder, you know, kind of a 4/4, almost oi-ish kind of beat to it. Selfish Few is a great one. 4-Minute Warning, of course, and Kill Your Baby. There's some great sloppy, angry punk anthems on this, but a lot of the stuff in between just kind of falls flat with me. I realize that's sacrilegious to certain people, but I'll stick with 100% right now. I know they have a lot more than that, but I kind of like their later 90s stuff better. After that, we got Scorched, Excavated for Evisceration. Can't believe I pronounced that correctly without fucking stuttering. This is a demo, it's a compilation of this Delaware death metal band, and it's great. I need to get their recent record because I really like this. It's just good meat and potatoes, American death metal. Center labels, black vinyl. Certainly has a lot of that early Cannibal Corpse kind of thrashy riffing, but very brutal death metal. The vocals are just guttural enough where you can still make out a word here or there. And the interludes on it are really horror soundtrack style, kind of giallo-ish, and very fucking cool. This came out on 20 Buck Spin recently, probably last year or so. Fucking great band. I know Schnell talks these guys up a lot, and with good reason. Not reinventing the wheel, but I really kind of don't want that anyway. I'd say next to Torture Rack, they're one of the best bands for capturing that early brutal sound. Fucking great stuff. Next, picked up an Armageddon Mental Getting Oxygen Tank on Bridge 9. Re-released in 2013, originally came out as a 7-inch in 2003. This was a band I saw a lot in the early 2000s. Fun, hardcore, drawing a lot of inspiration and influence from New York stuff from the late 80s, like Underdog, Outburst, Killing Time, all that stuff, but not really sounding anything directly like those bands. A lot of like real rocky kind of riffs with a good like kind of bounce to them. Plenty of fast parts as well. And this might be their best. I really like the self-titled first 7-inch. They did 3 7-inches in an LP. The LPs kind of started to involve more of like a post-hardcore quicksand influence kind of weaved in with their sound, and that's good too. Planet Mental is what that one's called. But this is just so much fun to listen to. And the side B, added onto the other side of the 7-inch there, is a live set from WERS, Emerson College, that very regularly for quite a while did a lot of radio spots from a lot of good hardcore bands. And the stage banter in this is fucking hilarious. The call-outs, Greg Wilmot's giving props to people walking by outside because you could see into the studio as people were practicing down by the Boston Common there at Emerson College. Just fucking funny dude. Great fun set. Highly recommended. As usual, I'll throw down links if you're curious about all this stuff. Check it out. So, Mental and Waste Management on both of these recordings share a drummer, Justin, who's also in Innumerable Forms and innumerable other bands. I won't get into it because I've talked about that plenty. Hell of a drummer, hell of a guy. And I've been awaiting a Waste Management LP for quite some time. This band's been around for over 10 years. They've done a lot of kind of one-off cassette live records and stuff like that, and a couple of 7-inches. And this does not disappoint. This is fantastic traditional American hardcore with a strong East Coast sound, strong Boston kind of influence, of course. You know, there's a lot of similarities to SSD, United Blood, Agnostic Front record, the debut 7-inch by them. I'd say there's a strong respect towards the punk roots of all that. The drumming is pretty strongly Discharge and kind of Japanese hardcore, kind of influenced in the rhythm department. The vocals are super desperate, pained, pissed off. You know, there's a lot of Springa in there, a lot of the singer of Bastard too, I think. And just fucking fantastic, catchy hardcore. This is definitely an album of the year, one of the best hardcore records this year for me, and it came out on Painkiller. And I will show you the center labels. Moving on with more Boston hardcore here. The new Slapshot. Also on Bridge 9. Make America Hate Again. Slapshot put out a self-titled record a couple of years ago that was really good. They don't really have too many weak links in their discography, really. I mean, Choke, Jack Kelly has had a lot of different people play with him after the classic lineup dissolved. They have a couple of weird records from the 90s. This is just perfect, gravelly vocal fucking Boston hardcore. Especially the song Trainwreck, about people that get wrapped up in kind of the bar life, aren't really doing much with their lives. The title track, Make America Hate Again, is classic Jack Choke Kelly fucking misanthropy. Fantastic drumming, fantastic guitar playing, bass playing. Everything on this is very pro and very fucking tight and very fucking well written. Moving on. Death Courier. Computer froze again. To fix the sleep mode so it doesn't fuck up my videos. This is Death Courier with Demise. Greek band. This came out in '91. It was reissued by Nuclear War Now a year or two ago, a couple of years ago. Very clean center labels here. I wouldn't say it's of the typical kind of Hellenic sound. You know, it's got that fuzz and that gloom. A lot of their country mates do. But as far as like having intricate melodies like Rotting Christ or one of those bands, it doesn't really do that. It's way more thrash based, almost sort of like a first wave black metal kind of thing. It's got gruff kind of death metal-ish vocals, a lot of good hooks, sort of political on certain points. There's a song called Cop Killer that is not a body count cover on here. It's very interesting, you know, it's definitely the sound of a band that exists in sort of a vacuum. But I would recommend it to people that are into like South American Black Death stuff and other Greek bands and stuff like that. It's almost a weird kind of possessed version of crossover thrash to my ears with a real raw, almost necro kind of sounding production. Very fucking cool. Death Courier. Then we went to this antique place and I just saw a handful of things. I was like, these are all cheap. You know, there were a few interesting records. Skinny Puppy record I didn't have here, Rabies. This is the one where they collaborated with Al Jorgensen from Ministry. So it's got a lot of that, a little bit more guitar stuff going on than a lot of the usual, like, layered, dense, dark electronics of Skinny Puppy. You can definitely hear the Jorgensen influence. It's got some of my favorite songs by them. Warlock and Tin Omen being two definite rippers. Not my favorite Skinny Puppy, but maybe my second or third. Favorite is probably still Vivisect 6. Only, you know, one of the few industrial bands I still listen to, as I've mentioned before. This was a repurchase. Figured I'd give this one another shot. It was like $5. This is Chelsea. They were a '77 punk band, you know, third tier British punk band. A lot of people might know who they are because Henry Rollins talks about them in Get in the Van and how the singer was a shithead to him. This is okay. You know, I don't regret buying it. I think this is their third record or fourth. It's definitely not their first. It's certainly kind of slowed down a little bit more poppy. Not as aggressive as a lot of classic UK punk. This came out in '80, so you figure like a lot of those '77 bands, by the time '80 rolled around, it's funny because it's such a short period of time, only 3 years, we're starting to get a little bit more jangly, and a little bit more of a pop sensibility going on. Decent record. Not sure how often I'm going to spin it though. And finally, Led Zeppelin 4. Zoso, Dog. Not a bad copy. It's a little beat up, a little worn on the back there. It was like $4. It's gatefold. It's got the wizard with the lantern. This is the only Led Zeppelin record I ever really got into. Like a lot of people that grew up when I did, the overexposure to Led Zeppelin via classic rock radio kind of ruined it for a lot of people. I hear a lot of people talking about how they're sick of Stairway to Heaven, or were sick of Stairway to Heaven. There's that reference to it in Wayne's World. I actually think that song's great. Maybe it's because I didn't get exposed to it on the radio quite as much as Rock and Roll and a few other songs. I didn't even know that Sandy Denny sings on this, which was an interesting fact. Not sure what rock I was living under. Didn't catch on to that, but I do like the printed inner sleeve. It's, you know, original. It's falling apart, but it looks nice. Got that cool script. I do love this record. I had it on cassette. My parents gave it to me one Christmas. I don't know, I always expected more out of Led Zeppelin in terms of like the kind of hippie fantasy element. You know, I expected more Hobbits, I expected more like Dungeons and Dragons, and it was a lot more songs about just like getting girls and that sort of thing. But this sates my need for Zeppelin. It's got some fucking great riffs and great playing. I mean, it's Led Zeppelin. Even if you don't like their music, which I'm just kind of meh on for the most part, at least outside of this record. Even if you're not a fan of their music, they were some of the best in the biz at what they did. And, you know, you can't go wrong with any song on this. Good shit, but all I need. That's about it for right now. Thanks for joining me. Plenty more to come. Couple specialty videos. Got a few things planned. Got some 7 inches to talk about coming up next. So Like, comment, subscribe, all that happy horse shit. You guys have a good rest of your weekend.